Good evening. Let me call
Recording
to
in progress.
let me call to order this meeting of the City of Bloomington Plan Commission for May 13th, 2024. We have a couple of last-minute changes to the agenda this evening. Jackie, do you want to give us a quick preview?
Yeah, Jackie Scanlon, Development Services Manager. On the agenda tonight, our first petition listed for discussion is ZO 4523. That's for Indiana Center for Recovery LLC, and that petition was withdrawn earlier today, so we will not hear that petition. And then we received back from the Common Council amendments to 3 petitions from our typical UDO update. So that's ZO 0524, ZO 0624, and ZO 0724. All 3 had small amendments that I'll quickly go over. So each of those needs to be heard, and you need to vote on their amendments.
All right, thank you, Jackie. So we already had 3 tabled petitions, SP 24-22, that was Cutters Kirkwood 123 LLC, ZO 34-23, City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation, that's text amendment to sign standards, and DP 17-24, petitioner Eric Deckard. Those are all continued to our June meeting. And so tonight we will hear DP 12-24, petitioner Darlene Meyer, and then we'll hear the changes to the UDO amendments as well.
And I think we'll hear the UDO amendments first because they're numbered sequentially before Ms. Meyer.
Okay, very well. Well then, let's get to it. Shall we start by calling the roll, please?
Enright Randolph.
Here, I also want to make a note that I will be leaving at 6:45 today, but it seems like I might be here for the duration of the meeting now.
Burrell.
Here.
Copper.
Here.
Jillian, can you hear us? Thank you.
Korodke.
Here.
Kinsey.
Here.
Stossberg.
Here.
Whistler.
Here.
Cockrum.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum, but just a reminder, since we do have one commissioner participating remotely, we'll need to have a roll call vote on everything we do tonight, so no voice votes. We do have minutes to be approved from both March 19th and April 15th. Are there any questions or corrections to those minutes? Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Move to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on approving the March 19th and April 15th minutes. Please call the roll.
I don't think you received March 19th minutes.
I actually had a question. I thought we already approved the March minutes.
Okay, sorry. So March 19th is the special session, so those minutes were just completed last week. There was a correction that needed to be done, so don't believe those were sent to you. But the April minutes should have been sent out on the email that you received the packet.
Yeah, we received April.
Okay, so I think
okay.
the vote would only be for April.
So maybe,
Apologies.
would you like to amend your motion then?
Amend my motion and move to approve the minutes from April 15th, 2024.
And I'll second.
All right, thanks. Let's call the roll.
Burrell.
Yes.
Copper.
Yes.
Korodke.
Yes.
Kinsey.
Yes.
Stossberg.
Yes.
Whistler.
Yes.
Cockrum.
Yes.
All right, so those minutes are approved. We'll move on now to reports, resolutions, and communications. Are there any reports from commissioners? Seeing none, any reports from staff?
I don't believe we have any. Thanks.
All right. Well, then let's move right on to our petitions. We'll start with the UDO amendments that have been returned from council.
Great.
Jackie,
Just
you have a presentation on that?
Yep. Just a second. Okay, so just a reminder of what we're doing. Every year that we do, every time we send something to council that they amend related to the UDO update, they send those amendments back for your approval. So the Common Council did obviously receive our 4 ordinances, and one, they approved, the technical ordinance they approved as is, and the 3 other ordinances they amended, as you can see here in the letter that we received from council. So the first is ZO 0524, and I'll just go ahead and say none of them were amended substantially. They were amended for typos and other clarifications. So let's see if I can, okay. So for ZO 0524, the first amendment was done for 5 typo corrections, so you can see those listed here, separating 2 words in one section, clarifying the need for semicolons in another section, word correction in the 3rd, and spelling error in the 4th and 5th. So that was their first amendment, and that was obviously approved, and that's why you're seeing it. And then they had a second amendment. This one clarifies some of our mulch and stone standards, that the term decorative was to be applied to stone only and not mulch, and that we will not be allowing gravel on single-family lot or plex development for landscape beds. So that was something that came up after you all saw it when staff had a chance to look through the proposal again. And so Ms. Dossberg made that clarification for us. So those are the 2 amendments for ZO 0524. So staff recommends that you approve the council amendments for ZO 0524. I can answer any questions.
Are there any questions from commissioners? No? Is there any public comment on these changes to ZO 0524?
If you're on Zoom, and you can either raise your virtual hand or send a message to the host. I don't see any takers.
All right, seeing none, then we are back to the commission. Any final comments or a motion? I believe the motion would simply be to accept the changes, accept ZO 0524 as amended by the Common Council.
I think that's fine, yes.
I'll move that we accept changes from the Common Council for ZO 0524.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Let's please call the roll.
Copper,
Yes.
Korodke,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Stossberg,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Cockrum,
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
All right, that motion is approved.
Great. So our second ordinance that they looked at was ZO 0624, and they had one amendment there, which I'll put on the screen shortly. And again, just correcting, splitting the term rooming house into 2 words, a missing letter, and then you all had voted for the government service facility definition to not change, but I hadn't clarified that well in the documents that went to council, so they clarified that here by including the previous definition so that that would be clear going forward. and then two, I believe, three more small missing words. So again, typos and corrections, and this was their only change for Z00624. And so we recommend approval of that amendment.
All right, are there any questions from commissioners on Z00624?
Yeah.
Nope. All right, any public comment on these amendments to Z00624? Another reminder, if you're joining us online, just click on the raise hand button or send a chat message to the host if you'd like to make comment. All right, we are then back to the commission for any final comment or a motion.
I'll move that we approve the Z00624, the amendments as written.
Second.
All right, let's please call the roll.
Korodke,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Stossberg,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Cockrum,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Copper.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Z00624 is approved. I believe we have one more.
Yep, one more. So this is for Z00724, and this is also two corrections. So a missing T, you can see here for the word not no, and then changing this from the word a to the word no to meet the what it was trying to say. So two typos there, and this is Z00724, and so the department recommends approval.
All right, any questions from commissioners on these changes to Z007-24? Is there any public comment on these changes to Z007-24?
I don't see anything online.
Last call for public comment. All right, we're back to the commission for any final comment or for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the amendments to Z0-07-24.
And I'll second.
All right, please call the roll.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Stossberg,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Cockrum,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Copper,
Yes.
Korodke,
Yes.
All right, that motion carries as well. And we are now on to our final petition. This is DP-12-24. Darlene Meyer is the petitioner. Case manager is Eric Grulich, but I have a feeling Jackie Scanlon's going to be.
Yes, Mr. Grulich is taking a well-deserved vacation, so I will be walking us through this. My apologies, I didn't realize there wasn't a PowerPoint until like 5 minutes ago. So we're just going to be looking at the packet and the images in there, which is a little non-traditional for us, but should work. Let me get that queued up. All right. So the petition that we are looking at is a request for a primary plat approval. And so it's for this rectangle here in the middle that's purple. They are requesting to approve a plat for a 19-lot subdivision. It's just over 5 acres, and the zoning is residential medium lot R2. And the petitioner is also requesting a waiver from the required 67% of lots to be accessed by an alley. So the property, as you can see, is located on the north side of East Morse Pike. Surrounding land uses include single-family to the north and west, and then attached single-family to the east, and agriculture single-family in the Ag-RR in the county jurisdiction to the south. No known regulated environmental features on the property, and the property currently contains one single-family dwelling unit. So you can kind of see it here in context on the aerial. The petitioner is proposing to subdivide the property to create 17 single-family residences and 2 common area residence parcels and 2 common area lots. The proposed subdivision would be accessed with one drive cut from Morse Pike, so from the south, and would include an extension of Bridgestone Drive, which you can see here in the aerial to the east, that goes through what's known as Hearthstone Village to the east. Let me show you the drawing here. The petitioner is, so when you do a subdivision in the code, you have to pick a subdivision type. And so that, we have 4, but they aren't always easy to match exactly with available land for subdivision. So in this particular situation, the petitioner chose a subdivision type that requires alley access, so that's called our traditional subdivision, TD, design standards. You can see here that with the design that they desire, so stacked houses on either side of a north-south road with that Bridgestone connection coming here in the middle, it would be difficult to incorporate alleys. So that is why the petitioner is requesting a waiver from that standard. The standard is required that 67% of those lots would have vehicular access from the alleys. So again, no alleys, but the petitioner has included, because this is just a limited connection subdivision, has included a turnaround at the north end and will stub the road to the north property line, as we've discussed with other similarly shaped subdivisions. The UDO does not allow coals to stack, and so they can't, without receiving a waiver from this body, they can't not have the stub to the north in case there were to be development at some time in the future. The petitioner is including on all internal roads the required 6-foot sidewalk and a 6-foot tree plot, which I believe is 1 foot more than required, and currently on-street parking on both sides. We did receive some comments today from engineering requesting potential discussion, I believe, of the right-of-way for Bridgestone, the east-west right-of-way, because it doesn't match that of the one to the east. But Mr. Copper can give us some more information about that. And this type of petition, because they have not requested a waiver of second hearing, is one of the ones that you will hear twice. So tonight we will air questions, and you can ask details or things that you would like to see. And then the petitioner will be back again next month to discuss that. So they are showing each of these lots can be developed to meet the underlying zoning, which is R2, with items such as the 60-foot lot width requirement, 7,200 square feet lot area requirement. They'll meet all those standards. They do believe that building setbacks will be able to be met as well. And they have submitted their stormwater management plan to CBU for review, and approval of that plan by CBU is required before issuance of any permits by our department. And so basically, again, they are trying to develop 17 new home sites, and then there will be 2 common area lots. You can see those here, closest to Morse Pike. They will be installing pedestrian facilities along Morse Pike and on the internal roads as well. And there may be some question. You can see to the left here of the proposed subdivision, so that would be to the west. There does appear to be a platted right-of-way, though it doesn't appear on the Elevate maps. There is a plat for that, and it doesn't quite line up. So we may be interested tonight. That's something that I don't know if Mr. Grulich has already gone over that with the petitioner, but may be interested to discuss what the plan is. There a plan for future connection to that? Should that happen on this property, or should we wait and have that discussion when the next property is developed? So there, again, won't be a decision Tonight, likely, we haven't proposed findings for you, but we do recommend that you forward the petition to the required second hearing at the June 10th hearing. And I can answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Jackie. Are there any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Copper.
Start maybe with the detailed question that you referenced. So actually for both streets, it appears the street width was chosen based on the default neighborhood residential street width. The transportation plan includes an additional table that clarifies street widths based on traffic volumes and parking utilization. And so I guess my question is, was that used in choosing the street width, or should it be used in choosing the street width?
Great, thanks. So I will say, based on the brief interactions we had with Mr. Grulich today, it appears that he just used the standard. So I do think, and I'd like to hear, obviously, the petitioner would maybe know if they had discussions about that more than I was able to glean. But if we do think it should be modified based on a modification table, then we are happy to have them do that and bring that forward for the next time as well.
Other questions? Commissioner Stossberg.
Saw this preliminary plan at the lunch session. I think I remember these being paired homes. Am I correct about that? Does anybody else have that memory? That they were paired homes as opposed to single-family homes. And so I guess I'm just kind of wondering where the paired home idea went. Because I thought, because that's kind of a piece of affordability.
Yes, so I do recall that we have seen an iteration, I believe, of that, so the petitioner could probably answer that for you better than I could.
Is there a representative of the petitioner who'd like to respond or make a statement?
Do you want to go to the petitioner time or just do
Yeah,
questions?
if you have something, if you want to just answer this question, or if you want to go ahead and make any kind of statement you want, go ahead.
It's up to you if you want me to do a kind of full presentation,
Yeah,
or if
go
you
ahead.
want me to just answer the question.
Inform our questions here, yeah.
All right, and I am Daniel Butler. I'm with Bynum Fanning Associates. I'm registered civil engineer here in the state of Indiana. With me tonight, representing the ownership group, is Darlene Meyer, and also Beth Robinson with that ownership group. And then we have representing kind of the build team, or those that will actually be building the homes tonight, is David Jenner and Reed Hodges. So if you have any questions about what kind of products you might get with this, you can ask them any questions as well. We've done several iterations on this property on what really fits here, what is the best use of this property, and the nature of the property is a long, like you've seen, a long, slender piece that would fit. We felt best fit was to have one traditional street that has on-street parking, with the exception of parking, no park zones near the intersections. And those can be possibly even painted, so we make sure that that doesn't go too far, with some of that on-street parking. So without the alleys. So we're asking tonight that you would allow this to go forward without alleys, so that we could have a double row. The width wouldn't work with having alleys there on both sides. So that's why we're asking for 2 sides with lots and then 1 road that goes down through the middle. We also are, like Jackie was explaining, having connectivity to Bridgestone to the east. And so we did keep our design so that with the existing infrastructure that's actually out there now, actually lining that up, rather than, we were aware of, there is a right-of-way that's planned out to the west, but you can't line them both up. And so we did choose to line up the one to the east. It would be very difficult to do some kind of jog or something like that. So we recommend that you would look at the right-of-way to the west as in a future date. That's why we lined it up now, because you have current infrastructure there and lining up Bridgestone for connectivity to the east. We do plan on capturing all stormwater from our property and taking it to a planned pond on site, keeping with the current drainage patterns. We're not taking any stormwater elsewhere. So we've graded it so that everything is going to go to that common lot that you see in the southwest corner. The southeast corner is just some extra grass area that would really serve to make sure that all the stormwater from the east side is also directed over to that pond. So we're also infrastructure that we're providing would be connectivity to current CBU sanitary, and then also current water infrastructure that is over in the east of us. I think that's everything I wanted to point out, but there was one question that I don't think I've answered yet, and I don't have that in my notes, so I forgot what that was.
I believe the question was about the paired home idea.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't remember. We did have paired patio homes or some kind of paired homes at one time with a 0 lot line, and we've changed that such to provide everyone with their own driveway. And so we've gone away with that design. We felt that it would be a better use of the having these being sold as individual new lot, homes for lot owners, to that it would be a better product and the city would receive a better product by doing that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the staff or for the petitioner?
Most of the right, that happy, in other words, to extend that road to the house. Is that kind of how it's done?
Yeah, you're saying our current plan? Yes, yes. So if there was a development to the west, then you would have to remove that. But we assume that would happen if there is indeed a development to the west. Yeah.
Commissioner Kinsey.
Yes, I wanted to go back to a question that Jackie Scanlon put in my mind with the choice of a subdivision type. And I wonder if you can say what other subdivision types were even discussed or considered for this proposal? And is there one where we would not have to make an exception for the alley load option? And then kind of any other thoughts on the subdivision choice here?
Jackie, do you want to answer the different types? I can answer it, but I think you'd be more inclined to.
All right, so the first type is infill subdivision, so that we added a number of years ago for, like when you're doing small subdivisions in town or in developed areas. And so that has a maximum parent tract of 3 acres. And also doesn't have basically almost any other design requirements because it's supposed to be for kind of like small contained subdivisions. And then the fourth type, I'm skipping to 4 and I'll go back to 2, is commercial employment. So that doesn't make a lot of sense and doesn't make sense here because this is residential, and also the base district requirement there is not any residential districts allowed. So the only other one that could probably have potentially been considered would be the conservation subdivision type, and that is intended, of course, to allow for protection of some of our more at-risk environmental features, such as like large tree stands, karst geology, steep slopes, water resources, et cetera, so that you can have clustered development, on a portion of a lot, and then save the environmental element on a separate portion. So again, this would have met it is allowed in this district. It's a minimum parent tract size of 5 acres. This would have met, I'm guessing, and Daniel can clarify, Mr. Butler can clarify, but that probably was not considered because there aren't a lot of environmental features here to save. So that leaves you with traditional.
Okay, yeah, so that, I just want to, one, I was curious what the other type options were and if there were any that were more appropriate that we were avoiding, but it doesn't sound like there are any more appropriate ones, and this really is the best choice, but it requires this exception. All right, and then I had two other detailed questions, but perhaps Neil Copper could answer the right-of-way with the Bridgestone, and if that is something that we need to understand here moving forward. So I'll just put that one out there. And then the other is about the turnaround space for large emergency vehicles or, anything else. Can you say a little bit more about where that goes and if anybody had any concerns about that from a safety access concern perspective?
Neil, do you want to talk about the right-of-way first, or?
Maybe clarify again what the question is?
Yeah, I guess I'm responding a little bit to the right-of-way question that I think Jackie alluded to in the presentation. I just want to make sure that I'm not overlooking something. And I don't know, maybe it's not an issue.
I can show, okay,
Something.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me briefly, I'm gonna share a screen from Elevate, which is the county mapping system that's based on the auditor books. So this has zoning on it, so sorry if it's kind of hard to see, but we're looking at the petition site here in the middle, and then this is existing Bridgestone to the east. So this petitioner is lining Bridgestone up this way to go here. The properties to the west have a subdivision, and their 60 feet of right-of-way is here, south of that property line on their plat. So I think one question we had, and Mr. Butler spoke briefly about this, is, do we prefer, would we require that this roadway be moved slightly so that it isn't just east-west and so that it does connect the two Bridgestones? Or would the idea be that if the western property goes to develop, we would address that right-of-way location at that time? I'm not sure that's a question for Mr. Copper, but it might be a question for the group. Like, do you have a preference?
Okay, so that is still in reference to the west, really the west side right-of-way
Yeah.
that we were just talking about earlier. Okay.
Right, so here you can
All right.
see, this is an amendment to their original plat. So lot 3 is that like little northern square here. And then south of the northern square is this Bridgestone Drive, 60-foot right-of-way. So, I mean, this is it's from 1996, so I don't know why that wasn't, platted that way. I don't know why, I don't know why it doesn't appear that way on Elevate, but it does appear to be dedicated right-of-way. It's obviously not a right-of-way we would have accepted. It doesn't go anywhere, and it doesn't exist. But it does appear to have been dedicated, and when we kind of just very generally measured it out based on the length, for example, of this northern lot of 265 over here on the side, when you measure it out, it is going to be south of that property line split, but that's still further north than what's to the east. I don't know if that's too wonky for this conversation,
Wow.
but they don't line up is the gist.
Yeah, they definitely don't line up. And I mean, even Bridgestone, even on this image, is a little wavy on the east portion.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, repeating that same waviness there is worth thinking about. It certainly doesn't help maybe with this very square design that the petitioner is proposing for these lots, but I don't know, I feel like we're not addressing a potential problem here, and I don't know when the appropriate time is to address it, and maybe that's something to be worked out between now and the second hearing. But it seems to me, I don't like to just keep pushing, here it's a visible problem, so should we address it now versus hoping when the next lot to the west of it gets addressed that somebody else will address it then. That's a question I think I have for this particular development. And then so maybe nobody can answer that now, but I think that could be something that we think about, or somebody at least has an answer for the second hearing, and then the turnaround for vehicles that's proposed.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was your question about the turnaround, Ms.
Yeah, I just wonder, what was that is really to assure that a larger vehicle can turn
Yes.
around in this space?
Correct.
Because cul-de-sacs aren't allowed and, well, yeah.
Right, so because cul-de-sac aren't allowed, we sometimes hear concern from the public about like emergency vehicles and how would they get around without pulling into someone's driveway. And so one of the things that we do is have, in this type of design, this is 14 feet of asphalt and a 20-foot right-of-way, so similar to an alley. So like a fire truck or a trash truck or something should be able to turn around there and come back. So to address that kind of weird thing where the code wants a stub here, just in case this were to develop into the future, but acknowledging that the property to the north does have development on it, and that the having this turnaround allows for the larger vehicles that are needed for municipal services to be able to get in and out. And Mr. Butler might have an addition as well.
I'll just add to that, one way of doing that to allow a emergency vehicle to turn around as a cul-de-sac, but since those aren't allowed in the city right now, this is an alternate to that, where an emergency vehicle would make a 3-point turn. We call them a hammerhead, but it can be used for future connectivity as well. So it's a dual purpose up there to the north. The other piece with this is we normally design those so that a 40-foot long ladder fire truck would be able to make that turn. That's about the largest emergency vehicle there is, so that's what that would be designed for, but just want to add that in as well.
All the way at the property line then?
That's correct. We have the right-of-way all the way at the property line. The actual pavement will give a couple feet there, just to have a little bit of green space, so it's not pushed all the way. So if there's maintenance needed or anything like that, there'd be a little room to play with there, so it's not crossing over any type of property line.
Got it.
And thank you for that explanation. And the only other thing I was just thinking about this is I have to imagine where I've seen these before, but I'd also want to make sure that, cars don't end up parking on it and blocking it. And, so I presume there will be appropriate signage to make sure that it remains a space for emergency vehicle turnaround or large vehicle turnaround. But I'm glad to see that this is being considered here. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Copper.
For the petitioner, you noted restricting parking near intersections, and in the plans it says something to the effect of the typical width changes at the intersection approaches. Is the intent there that there would be physical curb bump outs? Is that a future detail and just not shown yet?
No, but we're not opposed to providing those, so we could do bump outs here. We were planning on painting the curb or providing some kind of neighborhood no parking signage at those places, but either is fine with us.
Yes. I'm not sure if you're going to present a new diagram or not to address maybe some of the discussion with connectivity. But my question, if you go to page 30 on the packet, and on the southern eastern part, they call out the southeast corner of the southwest quarter of Section 1, Township 8 North, Range 1 West. And I was just kind of seeing if that was consistent with our records. I'll just kind of backtrack a little bit. As county surveyor, I do the public land surveying system. That's part of the record. They indicate as a PLSS corner, They don't specify what type of monument's there. We do have it tied off in our record, and even in the legal descriptions and in the meets and bounds, it's not called out. So I was just wondering if we could update this to call out what type of monument's there so we can make sure it's consistent with our records as well. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. That we have done a detailed ALTA boundary survey on this property, but I'll look into that. I'm not sure why that wasn't noted.
And a lot of the times, we do this through the preliminary process at the county, and we consider this just a scrivener's error, and they're just updating the monumentation that's there.
Yes, sir.
I want to kind of tag on to that right-of-way comment that was happening and ask maybe the petitioner, or maybe this is an idea, because you mentioned the idea of kind of a diagonal road going in there to match up with that right-of-way, or a jog not being considered. And I was wondering if your definition of not being considered, I guess, was something that came in, like to have Bridgestone tee into Baxter and then go a little bit farther north and then have a second stub go out as a tee that would line up with that right-of-way. Because I'm also kind of nervous about lining anything up not with that right-of-way, because if you look at the overhead, I mean, the next lot over to the west is also, seems to be another long, narrow lot like this one, where it looks like it's owned separately from maybe the rest of that agricultural field. And I wouldn't want that lot in the middle to stay the way it was, but then the lot on the farther west to end up being developed and then have this stub going through this house, which would just be like, I think that would be very poor planning.
We have looked at that. What you're saying will be difficult to pull off. I'm not saying it's impossible. You're talking about a fairly decent jog there, but we can certainly look at that again.
Can you help me understand why that would be difficult in terms of having basically like two T intersections just a little bit offset from each other?
That wouldn't be difficult. That may be a question for engineering, if they would allow that. If that's okay, that's no problem on our end to do an offset intersection and have that not necessarily be a true T, but you have two 90-degree offsets, not necessarily a jog. We would be amenable to that if engineering was as well.
I guess I feel like that would make as much sense as having a stub into something that's not a right-of-way, but is close to a right-of-way.
So that's something we can keep talking, we can get with engineering and the petitioner in the interim time and see if they think there's something that they could be amenable to, both parties.
Jackie, can I follow up on that just quickly? So there are already multiple lots subdivided on the parcel to the west. And if any of those lots were to be developed, would they not be required to connect to the adjacent property? In other words, would it be possible to develop just the northern lot there in the scenario we're looking at today?
Yeah, I mean, so if you mean develop, like, build one house, I think they could build one house. But if they go to subdivide it in a similar manner, for example, to this, then that was, I think, kind of what go ahead, sorry.
No, but even if you were just to build one house on that northern lot, you'd have to have access somehow, right?
Right, and it doesn't appear, right, that the current plat has that. So yes, they would have to figure something out. Look, there's an access easement here all the way through Lot 2. Just the question is, I guess, for me, and this has just come, I'm sure that Mr. Grulich and maybe Mr. Butler have discussed this previously, but this came up today, and I don't know why this right-of-way isn't penciled in the auditor's books. So that's something we have to run down. Like, this would be the rough location of it. When we do subdivisions now, we're more careful to say if you're, platting right away, you've got to build it within the timeline of what the UDO requires. But I mean, this was almost 20 years ago now, and so, or 30 years ago. So I'm not good with numbers. I don't know. I'm not sure what would have to happen there. We have to kind of figure it out.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Oh, Go ahead.
I'm going to have another one.
Well, keep going.
I have two more probably that I can think of. One, I want to go back to that paired home idea and affordability and ask you if you have an estimate on what these single-family homes would sell for as they are.
While he's coming up, I do want to just go back to that right away. We're willing to work with the city on whatever plan needs to happen with that right away. We're not opposed to different ideas. This is what our best idea, making that straight at the time for connectivity. So we're not opposed to having some kind of, variation on what you're talking about.
I'm Dave Jenner with Authentic Homes. I should have brought my drink up. So the idea of paired homes was in the beginning, but what we discovered is whether we went with paired homes or we went with individual homes, it did not change the lot numbers. So the units didn't change. So therefore, putting the paired homes together wasn't going to create more lots that would have decreased the cost of lot cost into the units. So on the other side also is it's easier to sell a single-family home than a paired home. The average person wants their own little space. So with those two things happening with this particular piece of property, we chose to go with a single-family home because it's a lot more marketable. We're estimating costs starting at around $450,000 per home.
So help me understand this. So if you put two paired homes in the place of one of those single-family homes, you would still end up selling each of the paired homes for $450,000? Because that's what I'm asking here right now.
Yes, because you do not gain, I don't gain anything by putting those houses together. I don't gain any more lots. If I was going to gain 2 or 3 more lots, then all of a sudden all that costs that we had into this property decrease per lot. But no, we don't have that. I can't pair them up and create more lots. Does that make sense?
Well, why, can you not create more lots because of the guidelines in the UDO about how large lots have to be?
Yes, there's not enough property here to do that.
Yeah, the current traditional neighborhood in the R2 zone requires 7,200 square feet minimum regardless of whether they're zero lot line or, use the full building setback. So you wouldn't get an extra lot from that.
I guess, like, I understand right now, I guess I'm just kind of disturbed by that in terms of if we want as a city to try to allow for more affordability, that it seems like it would make sense to allow for that kind of development, at least on some of these lots, so that they're not all homes priced at $450,000. So I don't know what we can do between this month and next month, and I appreciate, the things that you said about them being easier to sell. But I was also reading a story in the New York Times today that basically was like, depending on what your rent is and how much your house costs, it's not actually worth it to buy. And that $400,000 mark, like anything above that, it was pretty much like you've got to be paying a whole lot in rent, like $3,000 or more a month, in order to make that even worth it. And so I'm just concerned about the idea of us building more houses that are in this particular price point, when what we really need is a price point that's much lower than that.
Any other questions? I'll just quickly follow up on that. I know this is asking you to speculate, but and this was a topic of debate during the UDO, minimum lot sizes. If there were a smaller minimum lot or no minimum lot size, do you think it would be viable to do, would you have seriously looked at doing more smaller lots at a lower price point?
If the numbers would work, yes. I mean, if we could make this work with paired homes and get the lot sizes down where we could gain more lots. But I mean, it's pure economics. You've got to be able to divide up a set number of lot costs into those lots. And if you have more lots, you got the same road, the same curb, the same sidewalk, the same piece of property valued, right? So you create more lots and you can divide that up more. So if there was something doable, yes, we would definitely look into that and take that into consideration.
Thanks. Any other questions? Go
I
ahead.
did have one more, sorry. Are these going to be all electric, or is there going to be natural gas to these?
I'm hoping that there's natural gas there.
There's gas available to us, and we would utilize that if it's available.
Any other questions from commissioners? All right, we will now go to public comment. So if you'd like to make public comment, step up to the podium, state your name for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to give your comment. If you're online and want to make comment, just click on the raise hand button and or send a chat message to the host, and we will recognize you when it's your turn to speak.
I'm Deborah Owens, also known as the lot to the west. I am not allowing a road to be right there through my home. I've lived there 25 years. I know up where that one division is. We own this property. We're not developing anything. So, I know you were talking about future development. That may happen at some date, but I own it. I don't plan on selling it. Nothing's happening. I was worried, though. I'm sure these gentlemen can figure it out, but that is a very bad area to flood down low. It has ran across Moore's Creek, across, on top of the road before. I worry about more asphalt coming, into this area, how high up this is going to go, because we've had it, and, like Miss Reed could tell, up near some of her rental properties that are there now in front. And I also worry about a buffer area. We've kind of gotten used to being private out there, and I know the big farm to the west of us. I don't know if anyone's ever approached him. From what I've heard, he is not selling, so we like that. But, at the same time, not trying to give these gentlemen any grief, I do want some sort of a landscaped or, whatever, just a little bit of a buffer zone. And, I will fight tooth and nail. I will not have that road going that close to my house, or they're saying it has to go. I know when we bought it, there was an easement, but that was not out my back door. That's all, I have to say on it. I just wanted to make that known. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Just step to the podium, state your name for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes.
My name's Jamie Hickman, and I live directly parallel to in Hearthstone. My concern also is about the water, and my property abuts the field that's currently there, and the trailer and the home that's there. There's 2 pieces there, but that water runs like a river when we get the 1 inch or 2 inches or whatever we've been getting, and it's only going to get worse. My concern is about how, once we put the concrete and the blacktop and these homes there, how that water is going to be dealt with. I know that you have some areas that are being for some runoff at the front, but my concern is that enough, because it's only one side that's got to the west, one side to the west, that has pipes. I don't know how, it's down near Moores Pike anyway. They've shown some small there, that's common area. But also, when it even gets to Moores Pike, those pipes, can they handle that amount of water? And it is like a river. There's just, I mean, I can look out my windows and see it when we get those heavy rains. So that is a tremendous concern that I have about that, because that water will come to me. And as it is now, where I am at the end of Hearthstone Village, my property, I had to put a French drain in and a sump pump. So if I get any more water runoff from there, that is going to be, I don't know what I can do at that point. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
Hey, sorry. My name's Greg Alexander. There are so many aspects of this that are better than the way we've done things, like connecting that cross street makes a big difference. But I just look at the headline of this project. It's 5 acres and 19 mega houses, I guess. And, right, that's unfathomable to me. That's like, I'm going to try to use a term that I hope goes out of fashion in a mere, 6 months now. That's like county commissioners level of planning. Like that's not a responsible use of the very limited resource of land within the city. We should be having a population there that makes us want to improve Moores Pike, to make us want to fill in the rest of the connections that are missing. And having 17, 19, 15 houses, I don't know, it's not doing that. We could fit 50 on that space. We could fit 50 that would be owner occupied. They'd have tiny yards. They could be, I think R4 zoning would come awful close to that just as it is. And I know you can't just like vote this down and then suddenly you have a project that's twice as dense, but golly, we should try. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Any online commenters? All right, so we are back to the commission. Maybe I will just start by trying to address some of the questions that were brought up there. If the petitioner would like to respond, first of all, to the, maybe give a little more detail on the water retention, detention plans and how that would affect water in the area, and then what would the buffer be between those lots and the adjacent property? Is there any landscaping planned for the backside of those lots?
We don't have any landscape buffer to the west right now that we're planting as a development. We're okay with that. We're not opposed to that. We do have drainage infrastructure being put in on that backside, so we'd have to put it on the top side of the swale. That's not, we can do that. We can put in water-loving type buffer plants, but in order to make sure that we don't introduce or have any of the storm water that will run over to the west or the east, we are capturing all of that storm water and directing it to a new dry detention pond that would be at the southwest corner of the site. And again, everything from the east side would be directed toward swales that would be also captured by stormwater piping and taken to the pond in the end to make sure that we're not going to leave any of that stormwater to somebody else. And that's why it is on the southwest side, because that is the low spot of the site, and so we're keeping with the natural drainage ways. And also the west side of the property there, we are aware that as civil engineering practice, we are aware that there's a large off-site amount of water that is coming to that low spot over there, and we will be planning for that as well, not necessarily treating it, because we're treating everything on our site, but we also are planning for that amount of stormwater that's coming from the west side as well. They're correct that it is substantial amount of stormwater that will be coming to that low spot, and we'll be helping with introducing some infrastructure pond, and we will be lowering the amount that comes from our lot, lowering the amount of rate that will be coming from our lot and treating that as well as part of our infrastructure that will be placed at the beginning of the project.
Okay, when you say you're planning for that, what does that mean? Does that mean your detention pond will have capacity for more than what is generated on your site?
Well, the pond will, it's more than required for the site because we are aware that there are, I don't want to call them flooding conditions, but there is a large amount of storm water that is coming from the west side into ours, but we're not planning on treating that in our pond. But we will be directing it around the pond and putting in new infrastructure, meaning new large piping that will help capture that so it doesn't have a chance to keep ponding like it is.
I see. Thank you. Any other additional questions? Commissioner Enright.
I'm
sorry, go
ahead. Maybe this is a question for engineer for our side and just sort of Moore's Pike. I mean, the other development out there has entrances off of 446 as opposed to Moore's Pike. Besides that there's the East Wingfield. Is that the other subdivision off off Moore's Pike? Do we have concerns about traffic, just sort of turning on and off of Moore's Pike and the entrance to this being off that road as opposed to like 446? And are there plans to widen Moore's Pike at some point? Just curious.
That at least big picture plans, the transportation plan would outline, kind of the future vision for these streets. I don't think there's anything in the pipeline.
Sure.
And then I think for your question about kind of comfort of turning on and off these busier streets, I would point that back to Mr. Butler and ask if they have looked at those intersections and if they have any concerns about the intersection.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of schools of thought on, handling a smaller, a more minor street coming to a major street. And, you can do acceleration, deceleration type lanes or those types of things come into this type of intersection. With the amount of traffic that this will produce, we don't believe that those are warranted, but that's our initial analysis on that.
Commissioner Enright, Randall, you have another question?
Is it questions or comments?
Take your pick.
I guess mine's more of a comment, and sorry to make a comment, and then I might leave before we get to the end of this discussion, but I'll agree that when I saw the paired patio homes, it was a great concept. It's ongoing discussion. I won't get into kind of the price point of what you're trying to sell a home for, but I will say I do think sharing a wall could reduce some of the construction costs. But I understand that not providing more lots doesn't really hit that sweet spot to make it maybe worth your time. So I'm not sure how all my other colleagues feel, but maybe this is an appropriate area for a PUD to propose having more lots to move forward with that concept. If that's really what the petitioners are looking to provide, is maybe some more affordable or, attainable homes. I feel like that is more realistic. So that's just my comment. There's maybe a couple other avenues to take if this is truly what your desire is. If not, that's also your option. And, just let us know what you're thinking. And if that's your vision, I think you would get support up here. Or at least I would express my support, even though I'm a non-voting member.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Or, go ahead.
Just what Tron was saying, and our opinion on PUDs, because I don't mind his idea, but I know that what's our thought within the department on PUDs?
Well, they are useful. They should be I think what we've been saying for a number of years is mixed use. I mean, that's the intent, so that they could be, interesting and different. I would say the PUDs now, we require 15% of units to be affordable. And if the petitioner wanted to have smaller lots, he could already do that without doing a PUD. So you can use the sustainable incentives in this zoning district for reduced lot size and lot width if you do 15% affordable. So depending on how many additional units he could get based on those reduced dimensions, maybe that's a realistic thing for him to, to say, I'll build 25 units and 15% of that I'll, make affordable, and then, work with Habitat or someone else for those, and then make money on the other ones. I mean, they would have to think through that. But, so I don't think a PUD would be advantageous for them, and probably not for us either, but getting those same, you could use that same 15% is already available. The reduced bulk for lot size and lot width is already available in the UDO if that's something they wanted to look at. That could probably, markedly increase how many lots they could get, and then maybe be useful to them as well.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I'll also express support, generally speaking, for trying to get more lots in one way or another to make some more affordable options, maybe not necessarily on every single one of those lots, but at least maybe on some of them, to try to have some mix of affordability and or attainability and things that are more selectively attainable. But yeah, I don't know what good options there are out there, or what the petitioner is interested in, how much the petitioner is interested in pursuing that line. But I think that fits into our local goals to have more attainable options, and also just generally have more housing options, so that they're not just, 18, 19 of probably what's going to look like very similar properties, and having some variation in there might actually be good for you guys as well.
Mr. Copper.
A few comments, just reiterate the request to work with staff about the road widths. I want to point out the existing, I think it's called Bridgestone, the east-west road, is approximately 5 feet narrower than the road it's proposed to tie into with this development. And I don't think it needs to be that wide. I think, a narrower road saves you construction costs, it reduces your impervious cover, does less to encourage speeding, so there's a number of benefits to look at there. And then similarly, evaluating physical bump outs and working with staff on that. Just regarding the kind of alignment of the right-of-ways, I think I follow the logic of, you have to tie into the existing infrastructure on the east side, and I understand it would be real challenging to do just a straight shift in that narrow area, especially when you want, ideally you want your intersection to be at least close to a 90-degree angle, better, lower crash risk in that situation. Would be open to looking at the option for the kind of offset T intersections that was brought up, but I think there are some downsides to that as well. So maybe just, again, a request to try to flesh out those options a little bit more. Or is there a way to, halfway align it towards the north, and then if something ever redevelops on the west side, they would only halfway have to jog down. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Burrell.
Yes, so just piggyback on the right-of-way to the property to the west. When I look at the map, I'm looking at here at the map, the contour lines are pretty gnarly where this supposedly road is going to be, or is designed to be on the property to the west. So was any thought put into this, or just before they decided where the stub was going to be, Or they just like, oh, it's the end of the lot, so we'll put it in the end of the lot. Do you see what I'm saying?
You mean for the subdivision to the west?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I didn't look through the approval stuff for that. Right, I mean, you know, that northern lot is almost entirely trees, like, it's an odd
Well, it's,
subdivision for
yeah,
sure.
and there's a lot of elevation change, and also looks like a ravine of sorts. I don't know, maybe a little more thought put into this with engineering.
Well, I think that's a good point when we're talking with engineering and the petitioner about, do we want to do an alignment change?
Yes.
Would we even want a road to go through in that right-of-way that was determined in 96, or would there be a better solution? So that's something we can talk about.
Or
Look at
can
the
it go
typology.
up higher on the lot above? You know, I don't know. It's just something to keep it in mind, just because of I see the topography is not helpful here. If you're going to offset them, the two roads already, offset to a place where it would work. I guess that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the recommendation from staff here is that we forward this to the required second hearing. So I think that would be the motion we're looking for, if there are no additional questions or comments. Someone like to make a motion?
Forward this to a second hearing in our June meeting.
Yep.
Second.
All right, any final comments? I just want to call out, I think it's already been illustrated tonight, but this particular kind of project illustrates, I think, the shortcomings in the affordability incentives, right? They seem to be working really well when you have a big multi-story kind of project where, you know, an extra 20% is a lot of units, but if you're talking about, you know, what is this, 18 units, you know, you get 20% of that is 3 more lots, and 15% of that is also basically 3 more lots, and they all have to be affordable, so there's no profit on those extra 3 lots, and now all the existing lots have to get smaller, so you can't charge as much for them. So on these kinds of small projects, I think those incentives just aren't really an incentive at all. And so if we really want to see denser, smaller lots, we need to reduce the minimum lot size, right? I think it's as simple as that. I don't think we can do that before next month on this project, but I do think it's something we need to look at pretty soon.
I have a question about that. I mean, would that be a waiver request that we would ever consider? I mean, we're considering a request now for a waiver of the requirement for alley access. So would we ever consider a reduction in lot size to attain attainability standards for housing? I mean, I don't, you know, I understand there are rules that are outlined and that we've indicated, but here we are making an exception already to the subdivision type requirement. And would there be a way to reduce a lot size on something? Is that something we could ever entertain in exactly this kind of context? If this is an inappropriate question, I think we ought to know the limitations. So I guess it is a question, but I too have concerns about just the lack of incentive for building anything affordable in a lot size of this, where we're already making an exception to the way we would like to see things built because of the dimensions of the lot, and that's totally understandable. But I think for achieving the larger goals, we're missing out.
I would say, okay, so minimum lot size. So subdivision waivers control the things in Chapter 5, the subdivision standards chapter. Minimum lot size is in Chapter 2. That's a variance question. So that is for the BZA, not the Plan Commission. And again, you know, Okay, so for those who weren't here, we did reduce minimum lot size when we, as Mr. Whistler pointed out, we did take them down when we did the code update in 2019, 2020. It was controversial. Some people didn't like that. We could probably go lower than we are already doing. In this case, I mean, the reduced bulk incentives here for this are, we bumped these up again when we did 2019, 2020. So if the minimum lot area is reduced by 50%, so it's like twice the number than you would normally get, and then 15% of those would have to be affordable in some way. So there is a math that they have to figure out, but I don't, without knowing for sure, I don't have any indication that they've even looked at this to see, that this just isn't feasible. And that is something we want to know. If they do run it in the next month and tell us these numbers won't work, that is something we need to bring to you so that you can know and we can change it. But we have not had anyone look at these, and these are, I believe, more advantageous than they used to be.
Thanks.
No, if it's did you say like how big the plan is for these homes? Is that thrown out? Like, are these 2,000 square feet, 1,600 square feet?
We're looking around 1,500 to 1,700 square feet.
Okay.
'Cause they
Three
are
bedroom.
small. They're small lot, three bedroom, two full bath, 2-car garage with all on the same level. We're going to have all 3 doors in the houses. That area seems to have a target for older people. We're not going to make it no age limits or anything like that on it, but we are targeting that group of people.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so sorry. If you want to speak, well, first of all, we're in comments and questions, but that's okay. If you want to speak, you have to come to the.
If there's, since we kind of opened this can of worms, if you want to make a comment, please step up to the podium and you can make a comment.
Sorry.
That's all right. We just need to make sure we get your name on the record here and.
Mr. President, I was going to depart, but I will say I'm going to review the video and listen to your comments. Sorry I wasn't able to stay for the full duration of this discussion and meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Beth
Go ahead.
Robinson. I'm part of the development. I'm also the realtor for the property. One of the things that we're targeting is not just older people, but we're wanting to make this a mobility-friendly development. So that makes us much more inclusive to more people of the population. There's actually 17% of families have somebody that has a mobility issue. So we've had lots of people that we've talked to about this, and they ask, are you taking reservations? There is definitely a need out there, and this is the need that we're trying to hit. And we've spoke with the neighbors in Hartstone. We've had meetings with their HOA and invited all the members or all the homeowners there, and they've all been very much in favor of it.
Great, thank you. All right, that's okay, that's okay. Looks like you have another question now.
Point of order, I made a motion that we move it to the second hearing, so really, once I made that motion, we shouldn't have been having further comment on this at all. So if we want to have further comment on it, I should withdraw that motion, and then we should have further comment.
We can have comment once there's a motion on the floor. We can have comment on that motion.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do this as much as council does. I mean, discuss these things, but yeah, there's a motion and a second, and then you usually talk about the
motion.
Yeah.
Which is about moving it to second hearing, so.
All right, well, okay.
Sorry, I put my parliamentarian hat on there
Yeah,
for a second.
well, appreciate that. Thank you. Was there a second for that motion?
Yes.
All right. Well, then I guess we'll call the roll.
I mean, unless you guys want to discuss it further, which is fine, and then I can.
I mean, within Robert's rules, you can have discussion on a motion before the question is called.
Okay,
So-
I'll call the question then.
All right. The question has been called. Let's call the roll.
Stossberg,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Cochran,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Korodke,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
I believe that's it. The motion carries. And that is our final petition for the evening. Unless there are any other announcements or questions, I think we are ready to adjourn. Thank you. Thank you.